Across any game series, you're bound to get a variety of quests or missions that can range from being absolutely amazing to downright awful. Fallout is a series that I'd say is pretty standard in that regard. Some of the quests across the series are pretty memorable for either the wrong or right reasons, and we already did a video covering the worst quests in Fallout. So it's about time we spun some positivity on this channel and covered what I consider to be the shining stars of this beloved series. Today we'll be uncovering and analyzing a whole load of various quests, from the main story to side quests to even the unmarked ones. Today we'll answer the good old question, what are the best quests in the Fallout series? Before we get into the video itself, I'd just like to clarify that, like the worst quest of Fallout video before this, we're only covering the 3D games in this video. Eventually, I will do a full project on some of the 2D games and the quests surrounding it, but for the sake of clarity, I'm only covering Fallout 3, New Vegas, and Fallout 4 in this video. But with that being said, let's begin with a strong contender for potentially the best quest in the entire franchise. Now, everyone should recognize the name of this quest as being one of the treasured magazines that are found across the Fallout universe, but I like to also hope that you'd recognize it as one of the best introductory quests of any game out there. Wasteland Survival Guide is a starter level quest that the player will receive from Moira Brown inside of Megaton. She'll usually be one of the first characters the player will interact with in the first town the player will go to. Why is this? Well, everyone knows that when you first play a game, you get a nice lay of the land by investigating the nearby merchants. Moira will ask the player to assist in various tasks throughout her quest, ranging in difficulty as the quest moves on. Her tasks cover some of the fundamentally key parts of general Fallout gameplay, and can act as a tutorial for most of the mechanics that the game of Fallout 3 has to offer. At first, we're tasked with treading down south to the local Super Duper Mart to retrieve medicine and food from the thieves and bandits that reside in the area. This acts as a tutorial for two things. One, we can find medicine and food, which are both healing items, by just looking around abandoned homes and businesses across the Wasteland. And two, it introduces us to the most generic enemy in all of Fallout 3, being that of your humble raider. The local thugs are pretty easy to dispel, and personally the Super Duper Mart with a small band of shitty raiders has always been a core memory of mine. It's here that most players like myself get to experience the combat of Fallout 3 for the first time, and it's here that most players will finally realize that they're gonna enjoy the game, and it's here that a lot of people were introduced and fell in love with the Fallout franchise. Anyways, we head back to Moira and pick up the next task. She wants us to contract radiation sickness? Like, she wants you to purposefully cram your sensitive, squishy insides with toxic waves to the point where you're on death's door. But again, this acts as a fantastic tutorial, as she's essentially teaching the player that radiation isn't just a warning signal in this game, and that it's an environmental hazard that exists around every corner. She also then heals us of our radiation sickness, so I guess all is forgiven. Next up, we're tasked with leaving the local area and heading deep outside of Megaton territory to Minefield to investigate the area and extract a mine. And guess what? This acts again like another tutorial. We're taught that the world of Fallout is filled with traps and we can actually defuse them. The mines here are able to be disarmed and picked up, teaching the player that although there is danger almost everywhere, there is always a way to avoid it. Sneak attack critical in Arkansas? I think I just killed him. Let's see if I killed him. Oh my god, I did. Look at him. Dude. Then we have to do two separate different tasks involving mutated creatures. First off, we must eradicate a bunch of mole rats using the repellent stick, and then we must place a tracking device in the spawning pods of local mirelurks without harming a single one. Two very simple and easy tasks. After this, we're yet again dealt with the unnerving hand of Moira Brown. What's next quest? Surely the next quest is nothing crazy or anything like that. Optional, receive a crippling injury. God, she is psychotic. To easily cripple ourselves, we can just jump off the nearest balcony. To easily cripple ourselves, we can just jump off the nearest balcony, and then once we've endured the damage, we can hobble on back to Moira to yet again be taught the importance of healing the player's body from crippled damage by using stim packs. A very important mechanic to Fallout 3. The last 3 chapters are pretty so-so, as they're less of a tutorial and more of a here's what to do next guideline from the game itself. We're tasked with finding out the history of Rivet Rivet City, reprogram the Robco facility out west from Megaton, and also to gain access to the Arlington Public Library, which is seated near downtown DC. The actual tasks themselves are pretty meaningless. It's more the locations that matter, as the game is clearly pushing the player in the direction of local towns and points of interest. Rivet City is arguably the second city the player will come across, so this one is self-explanatory. The Robco facility is of no interest to the player, but it is hard to ignore the giant Tower of Tempany in the background that will 100% catch the player's eye. And the Arlington Library is again a useless location, but it is located near the Citadel and downtown DC, which are both important for the player to acknowledge. I've already spent way too long talking about Wasteland Survival Guide as a whole, but you can tell that I hold this quest in a soft spot personally. It's a great introduction to many mechanics that the game needs the player to know, and it does a fine job of laying down future endeavors that the player will most likely want to accommodate. After all this is said and done, we can report back to Moira Brown and finally finish the quest, receiving a perk that is dependent on how many optional objectives we complete, giving us an increase in poison and radiation resistance, which is a bit of a trash reward, but hey, the quest is worth it. We're back in the sweet, sweet deserts of the Nevada. Talent Pool is a classic Fallout New Vegas quest that needs almost no introduction. The quest is given by Tommy Torini of the Tops Casino at the Aces Club, just at the back of the building. The Aces Club is struggling to find acts for their late night show, and we basically become a recruiting agent tasked with finding top talents for the Tops Talented Casino. It is by some definitions a glorified fetch quest, but we're also introduced to some great characters who can give the player an experience or two. We also receive 3% of the cut spent on each of the talent, giving us an incentive to boost the price of each agent. First up, Billy Knight can be easily found right outside the Tops Casino, usually delivering some absolute dribble of a joke that makes you want to actually turn the game off.
I take my wife everywhere, but somehow she keeps finding her way back. I did it!
Hadrian, the second act, can be found within the Atomic Wrangler Casino in Freeside. He seems to be stuck in a pretty shitty contract, and we can get him out of this with either a swift tongue or a loose purse. The Lonesome Drifter, the most iconic character in this quest, can be located just north of El Dorado Lake, with his absolutely priceless guitar and his infamous revolver. His story is actually a nod to the mysterious stranger, defining him as the official son of the mysterious Vats character. And finally, we have Bruce Isaac from Novak, who is again a pretty easy recruit for the Tops. Over the course of the quest, the marquee located outside the Tops will update with the various acts you recruit, and if you so wish, you can head over to the Aces Club at any time to see them for yourself. It's a pretty dynamic quest that actually changes the course of the game in some minor ways, but I think it's really cool that they added in the actual acts themselves into the Aces Casino, and I also think it's cool that the environment of the marquee does actually change alongside the quest. Sticking to the game of Fallout New Vegas, we got another one of my favorite quests for almost any first playthrough, being that of One for My Baby. This quest is provided by the bald sniper known as Boone down in Novak. For a lot of people, Boone is usually the first or second companion that is recruited, and it's usually here that One for My Baby becomes a pretty well-known quest. See, Boone has been through a lot in his life. He's a man troubled with a terrible case of unlucky nature. He's always had it hard when it comes to the concept of surviving.
I'll make it worth
He's
your while.
bald! Sorry. His wife was sold into slavery by someone in Novak, and Boone was forced to kill her before the deed was done, and we are tasked with investigating Novak and discovering who exactly did it. It's a classic investigation case that sees us interrogating the locals about what exactly happened. Through conversing with everyone in town, we can find out that Carla, Boone's ex-wife, is she still his wife? We can find out that Carla was almost hated by everyone. She stuck out like a sore thumb and visibly hated the small town. See, Carla was a dame from the strip of Vegas itself, and she was used to the high living, and the people of Novak clearly didn't like her. But we can find out from Nobak, the local crackhead, that on the night of her kidnapping, a lone Legion soldier was seen walking into the main office of the Novak building. Here we can investigate Jeannie and her safe to find out she was the culprit. Taking her in front of the dinosaur results in her being eliminated and Boone being recruited. It's an all-round fun quest. You can actually take anyone in front of the dinosaur, and with a high enough speech check, pass them off as the suspect. It's fun, but once you know the answer to the riddle, the quest is basically ruined. But hey, it's still a fun and interesting quest. Okay, don't hate me, but I actually think Dangerous Minds is a good quest, at least narratively speaking, that is. Dangerous Minds is a main quest in Fallout 4 that sees the player investigate the inside of Kellogg's brain, going back through his memories and revisiting the core parts of his life. Kellogg is a mercenary that we kill prior to this quest, and it's only now after he's dead that we can actually unravel the various parts of his life and see him as a human being. Someone who has clearly lived a rough life and not exactly took the easiest of paths. It humanizes the character we just slain and makes you reconsider some of the choices you've made. I really like it. He's just a man working himself up the ladder to become a person who can genuinely survive. And it all catches up to him when he decides to start working for the Institute. Here, he becomes a successful mercenary, but is tasked with stealing some genetically pure humans from Vault 111. It's here we finally get evidence that Kellogg was our child's abductor. He took Sean from Vault 111 and gave him off to the Institute. It's a pretty good progression of the main story. We finally solved the mystery of who stole our child, and it perfectly sets up the second act of the game, of hunting down the Institute. The memory section itself is designed really well, and for a first playthrough it's super interesting. But that's the downside. We have to do this entire sequence every time we play the game. That's the issue with this quest. Outside of that, it's a good narrative bridge that cleans up any remaining questions the player might have, and honestly, I personally like it. Beyond the Beef, another beautiful Fallout New Vegas quest. Throughout your playings across the Mojave, you'll hear tales of how the White Glove Society just loves eating human meat, and how they're this vile cult of disgusting cannibals. And it's all true, really. If we speak with Heck Gunderson at the main lobby of the Ultra Lux, we can actually receive the task of finding his son, Ted, who has recently went missing inside the casino. With a little snooping around, or the acquisition of the cannibal perk, we can find out that the White Glove Society accidentally kidnapped Ted and placed him in a frozen locker. I say accidentally in the terms of they didn't want to kidnap such a highly important target for their appetizing ways. We are then tasked with the simple replacing of this human sandwich with another and releasing Ted without any suspicion. There are a few ways to finish this quest, but my personal favorite has got to be the stupid outcome of leaving Boone in the freezer to die. As we waltz Ted back to his father in the lobby of the casino, I guess the gravity of the situation became pretty apparent.
Quit your hollering.
Did you know
I'm
the
fine.
strip's all stirred up lately?
What? What is happening?
You done right, Bobby.
Heck gets his son back, the White Glove Society gets to eat their human meat, and we lose Boone. All round a win, if I have to say. The Big Dig is one of those elusive quests that I actually only really did for the first time pretty recently, and honestly, it's a good fun quest. In Good Neighbor, there's this tiny door down one of the alleys that sits an NPC named Bobby No Nose, a ghoul that happens to have no nose. She wants us to join a digging task that can result in us breaking into a giant storage room under Diamond City. We break out her associate from jail in Diamond City itself and head straight back to start the official dig. Killing off various creatures and ghouls that live down underground, we can slowly make our way towards stealing the amazing loot under Diamond City, which unfortunately results in us getting caught. See, Bobby No Nose lied. We weren't stealing from Diamond City, but instead from Hancock, the mayor of Good Neighbor itself. We essentially just dug it around in a circle to Hancock's personal lockbox and tried to rob the guy who let us live in his humble city. Obviously, we choose not to rob him and betray Bobby, resulting in us siding with his bodyguard Fahrenheit instead. This unlocks Hancock as a companion, but really this quest is just a fun little stab in the back. I love the minor twists and turns, and I genuinely think it's a small fun quest that some people might not even know exists. Election Day is one of the few unmarked quests that actually outshines some of the main and side quests themselves. In the small, very small town of Republic of Dave, we can find that a small Republic nation is holding its first ever election. The election is to select the next leader of the nation, who is most likely going to be the pseudo-tyrant known as Dave himself. If you ask him if he needs any assistance, he'll basically just confess that he wants people to vote as soon as possible so they won't have time to discuss or select a new leader. So, we're tasked with the small objective of asking everyone to vote. But we can also throw a wrench in the works by convincing one of the locals to run instead of Dave. I opted to pick Rosie, who is the only character in this small town who seems to have a crumb of common sense. No one will vote for Rosie except herself. However, we can steal the rest of the votes to force a Rosie majority, resulting in Dave losing. The funniest part of this quest is that if Dave does lose, Dave will actually leave town and head for Old Olney, a Deathclaw infested ruins that's seated nearby. And yes, I followed him all the way there, and he actually does end up in Old Olney. Where he'll eventually succumb to the Deathclaws and die. But if you choose to kill him as the player, then the rest of the town of Republic of Rosie will actually be hostile towards the player, which I don't think was intentional. So, as part of the main story of Fallout 3, our dad had left Vault 101 and wandered into the wastes. Eventually, we can track him down to Smith Casey's garage, which facilitates the entirety of Vault 112. Inside, we can find that Vault 112 is nothing more than a simulation that the residents are forced into, and we can find that allegedly more information on our dad's whereabouts is inside the simulation. Once locked inside the simulation itself, we can ask around for more info, and eventually we'll stumble across Betty, a seemingly harmless girl. She will give the player small tasks to perform around Tranquility Lane as a form of entertainment. These tasks can range from making a local boy cry, to breaking up a marriage, to straight up murdering a resident known as Mabel. The last task can be completed in so many different ways. You can crush her under a chandelier, you can force her to step on a roller skate and fall down the stairs, you can rig her own oven to blow up when she goes to cook, or even reprogram the local Mr. Handy to kill her. It's quite a fun little quest. Eventually though, Betty does want us to just murder everyone in Tranquility Lane, and this does finish the simulation, letting us finally meet our dad after all this time. The alternative ending to this quest is to activate a secret failsafe in the abandoned house, which turns on a bunch of Chinese invaders and ends the simulation early. This quest, Tranquility Lane, is by all definitions the best main story quest of the entire series. I mean, it's so good it feels like it should be a Dark Brotherhood quest from Oblivion or something. It's super fun and has multiple different resolutions that I can't help but find a new way to complete it every time I play it. I think it's fair to say that the majority of Fallout 3 players absolutely love this quest. Okay, we're gonna do a bit of a speed round to run some of these quests off because honestly my list is way longer than I expected it to be, and I'd be here all day just listing them off, so here goes. Rescue from Paradise. These little kids are enslaved inside Paradise Falls, and it's your task to free them. It's a cute little quest with alternative different solutions, with the easiest being that of just buying the kids outright. Whether you choose to blow up Megaton or save it, this quest is actually amazing. The fact that the game gives you the chance to blow up one of the most major cities in Fallout is nothing short of ballsy. This is that one Fallout 4 quest with the shish kebab. We help out the residents of Finch Farm by restoring their heirloom to their family, being the good old shish kebab from Fallout 3. A bunch of local raiders have convinced the farmhand's son to steal the sword and hand it over. We can waltz in, kill them, and retrieve the sword. The worst part of this quest is the fact that they give you the sword at the end of the quest. Why have the player retrieve an heirloom just to reward them with it? It makes absolutely no sense. Make the player have to steal the item afterwards or something, I don't know. Escape from Fallout 3 is probably straight up one of the best intros to an open world RPG you may ever see. I do want to make a full-fledged video on it at some point, so I won't go too in depth right now, but Escape does a good job of setting up a claustrophobic environment that is sugar-coated over in a similar way to the family-friendly PG era of the 50s, 60s America. It's only when shit hits the fan that you're truly shown the dark nature of the vault, and it even seems like the harshness of the Wasteland would be a more forgiving environment. It also acts as a very good tutorial too. Probably one of the funnest alternative quests in Fallout New Vegas. Instead of helping Goodsprings out, you can opt into killing them, leaving no one but Chet alive as a sole trader of goods. Unsafe Working Conditions is a main quest from the Fallout 3 DLC The Pit, in which the player must retrieve steel ingots from the steel yard to retrieve various armors and weapons for the upcoming arena fight. Collecting all 100 steel ingots is not fun at all, but the following arena fight feels like a nod back to the arena quest line from Oblivion. It's a fun little DLC quest that comes as a nice surprise. A guy gives you a camera and asks you to take pictures of various signs. It's fun and is an excuse to journey out to locations you've already been to. Man inside tree, no feel good, use fire, and tree die, man no longer feel. We're going to end this video on one of the most iconic and memorable quests of the entire franchise, obviously being that of Come Fly With Me. A lot of people actually hate this quest and cite it as nothing more than a glorified fetch quest, which isn't exactly false, but I personally love it. The quest is initiated by asking the locals of Novak about some ghoul sightings off to the west, or by walking your way into the Repcon facility itself. Once you arrive, you're greeted by a harsh sounding voice, asking you to rendezvous upstairs once you've gotten the chance. This is Chris Haversom, a human who seems to think he's a ghoul. You'll find out why soon enough. But anyways, we talk to Jason Bright, the leader of these kooky ghouls, who advises us to clear out the basement so that they can continue with their own quest. Going down, we can either choose to kill all the Nightkin in the basement, or actually approach the leader and discuss with Davison how to fix this entire situation without harming a single Nightkin. The Nightkin are here for a Stealth Boy shipment that went missing. You know, that thing that they're addicted to? Well, we find out the shipment isn't here and simply put they're on their way. Easy enough. The basement is now clear and the cult that followed Jason Bright can now venture downstairs. Here downstairs we can meet up and initiate part 2 of the quest, recovering vital items for a scheduled rocket launch. We need both a fuel type for the rockets and a thrust controller. The fuel type is easy, we can find 3 of those little rocket souvenirs and magically enough, that's enough rocket fuel for the rockets. And the thrust controller is the second item, and it's simply found at Old Lady Gibson's scrapyard just north of Novak. With everything returned, we can assist the cult with the finale of their launch and set them off. But before we do that, we can take the opportunity to ask Chris just why he thinks he's a ghoul.
Typical human. I was human once, you know. Grew up in Vault 34, northeast of here.
Yeah.
Nice upbringing if you like assault rifles and target practice.
Yep.
But oh, you prefer machines that don't shoot people? Not so nice then. Who should maintain the Vault's reactor? Hauser? Mitchell? No. Make it Haversom. He likes machines. Haversom won't mind getting irradiated. Haversom won't mind mutating. He's already ugly as it is. Haversom won't mind when his hair starts falling out after a few years. There's no connection, Haversom. You're neurotic.
Wait, you left your vault because you were going bald.
Bald? You call this bald, Smoothskin? I'm a monster. A monster!
Yeah, Chris thinks he's a ghoul because he smoked too many cigarettes and his hair fell out. Anyways, we botch the launch and everyone dies. Honestly, Come Fly With Me is a great quest with just how every little decision can be changed. In fact, most of the quests on this list are good just because they offer the player a vast variety of decision making. I personally believe it's a key to making a good Fallout quest. I also noticed that most of the quests I consider good actually came from Fallout 3 and New Vegas, and not so much Fallout 4. I don't know, maybe I'm missing a fair few. Feel free to let me know in the comments and I might consider a part 2 for this video. Anyways, like always, more content to come real soon. I really appreciate the growth I've had lately on this channel, and with the last video being a non-Fallout upload and still getting over 200k views, I genuinely feel very proud of this channel and more importantly my community. You might start to see a little bit more variety in the uploads soon to come, and that's just me casting a safety net, so to speak, when it comes to my content and the future of this channel. Anyways, have a great week and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.